The employee who paid the bigger tax bill on his pre-IPO shares came out ahead of the one who spread it out to save tax. Same company, same grant, same IPO. The one who is careful about the tax is the one who lost the money. If your company is headed for an IPO, you're about to make a handful of decisions you can't take back. Most of them in a window most people don't know is open, and the rest is a window where you legally can't act at all. This is the story of one employee through the whole arc: pre-IPO, the lockup, and the part 18 months later where a few $1 million of company stock suddenly became real. 3 concrete moves at 3 different stages, and here's the part that won't make sense yet. The move that looks like the expensive one, paying more tax sooner, is the one that put him ahead. I'll show you why, and the one bigger question that decides whether any of it actually mattered. If you're an employee at a company that's filing or about to, you already know the feeling. The equity has been the deal for years. It's been a number on a portal that didn't feel real, and now it's about to. You're good at hard problems. It's your job. So it's a little disorienting to discover that the hardest problem in this whole event isn't technical, and nobody at the company is going to walk you through it. Your grant came from HR, the tax lands with your CPA 2 years later. Nobody sits between those 2 desks. That's not anyone failing you, it's just the arc was never anyone's job to explain. Here's what most people believe, and it's reasonable, and it's where it goes sideways. You believe the IPO is the event. That's the day the stock starts trading, is the day everything happens. In fact, the IPO is the one stretch of the whole arc where you mostly can't act, the lockup. The moves that decide what your equity is actually worth happen before the IPO, in a quiet window most people sail right past, and after the lockup, when the concentration risk you've been ignoring finally shows up in full. Which move belongs in which window, and why the one that costs you more tax up front is the one that wins, is the question I want you holding the whole way through. Because the employee who understands the arc keeps a meaningful share of the event. The one who treats the IPO as the finish line usually doesn't. You've earned enough equity that the event could genuinely change your life. You haven't been shown that whether it does depends on one decision you're making or missing right now. Stay to the end, because past the 3 moves, there's one question almost nobody asks before they sell a single share. And it's the question that decides whether 5 years from now, this event actually changed something, or whether you just have a pile of cash and a faint sense you should have done something with it. If you've been treating your IPO as a date on the calendar instead of a multi-year arc with windows that open and close on someone else's schedule, this channel is built for that exact gap. Subscribe, and that's the gap we close, one video at a time. The most natural thing in the world is to point at the IPO date and think that's the moment. It isn't. And the reason it isn't is the thing that nobody's incentivized to tell you. The company wants you to focus on the IPO. It's the celebration. It's the recruiting story. It's the number everyone screenshots. But the IPO and the 180 days after it are the part of the arc where you've mostly locked up and you can't sell. The decisions that actually move the outcome live on either side of it, and there's no villain here. Your company isn't doing anything wrong. Your advisor isn't either. It's just the planning that matters happens in windows that aren't on anyone's official calendar, so they quietly pass. So here's the arc in plain terms. There are 3 windows. Pre-IPO, usually 12 to 18 months out. It's the quiet one, and it's where the highest value moves live, because you have time and often a tender offer that creates the cash to act. The IPO and the 180-day lockup is the loud one, and it's mostly a window where you can't act. You watch. Post-lockup is the one nobody plans for. The paper position becomes a real one, often a few $1 million in a single stock with a low basis, and the concentration risk you could ignore when it was paper is suddenly the biggest fact in your life. The whole game is matching the right move to the right window, and the window doesn't wait. This isn't a punishment for being early at a good company, it's just how the arc is built. The moves that matter most happen when it feels least urgent, and the moment it feels most urgent is the moment you can do the least. I'm Aaron Clem. Over 10 years at Inflection Point, my team has walked employees through this exact arc: pre-IPO, lockup, the messy part after. And in the higher tax states, the ones who ran the arc as one coordinated plan kept more than the ones who took each decision as it came. That number is smaller in a no-tax state and biggest in California, and I'll be honest about which one as we go. Let me show you 3 moves. Let me follow one person through it. A senior engineer, venture-backed company, 12 to 18 months from filing. He's got incentive stock options with a low strike and a real embedded gain, a smaller batch of non-qualified options from a refresh, and a tender offer just opened that lets him sell some vested shares. Same person all the way through. We'll catch up with him after the lockup. Move 1. Pre-IPO. Exercise the ISOs and the NSOs together, not in separate years. Here's the instinct almost everyone has, and it's reasonable. Spread the exercise across 2 tax years to spread out the tax. The problem is that done separately, the ISO exercise can trigger the alternative minimum tax all on its own, while the NSO exercise pays full ordinary tax. Two tax bills, no coordination. The move is to think of them as one decision in the same year. The NSO exercise creates ordinary income, which raises your regular tax, and your regular tax then absorbs much, sometimes all, of the AMT the ISO spread would have triggered alone. I'll give you one version of the math so it's concrete, and I want to label it clearly because this does not work the same in every situation. In this conservative case, a household around $370,000 exercising a modest ISO batch alongside a couple $100,000 of NSO. The coordination lowers the AMT bill modestly. There's a middle zone where it actually backfires and makes AMT worse, and a high zone, big tender offer funded exercises, where it works again powerfully. Three different regimes, so the concept is reliable. NSO ordinary income absorbs ISO tentative AMT. The dollar result is entirely situation specific. This is the move you run the actual numbers on before you pull the trigger, never on a rule of thumb. California AMT works as a concept-only layer here as well. There's a second reason coordinating the exercise matters. It can start the clock on potential federal tax exclusion for qualified small business stock. I have to be careful here because the rules changed in 2025 and the change cuts both ways depending on one date. For shares acquired after July 4th, 2025, there's a new tiered benefit. Partial exclusions at 3 and 4 years, full at 5. For shares acquired on or before the date, which is most already granted pre-IPO equity, the old rule still applies. 5 years or nothing. Whether your specific shares fall on the lucky side of that line depends entirely on when they were issued, and it's the first thing to check with your CPA before you count on any exclusion. The QSBS gain acts as an AMT preference exclusion, meaning to the extent it applies, it does not create the AMT the ISO spread otherwise would. Move 2. Pre-IPO. Take some chips off in the tender offer. When a tender opens, most people either don't realize they qualify or they participate too small or they skip it and go, let it ride. Treat it as a risk decision, not a market timing one. Selling 10 to 25% of vested shares in a tender locks in real money at real prices before the IPO and the lockup deliver whatever they're going to deliver. A tender at $40 a share is a tender at $40 a share. The fact that the IPO might price at 60 and pop to 90 or trade at 25 a year after lockup is exactly the thing you can't predict and don't have to. The tender is also usually the right window to fund move 1. It's where the cash comes from to cover the strike costs and the tax. Move 3, post-lockup. Offset the gains with harvested losses. Now jump 18 months, same person, the IPO happened, the lockup expired, the paper is real. Call it a few million company stock with a low basis. The instinct is to argue about how much to sell or how long to wait. That misses a lever. Every dollar of capital loss you harvested elsewhere offsets a dollar of this gain. The obvious source is any losers already in the account. The less obvious one, and I'll name the category without endorsing anyone, because there are several institutional providers like those in the tax-aware long-short overlay or 130 long, 30 short space, and this isn't a recommendation, is a strategy that holds long and short positions and aggressively harvested losses on individual names that moves against it, manufacturing losses that offset your IPO gain. One honest caveat that matters. This is tax deferral, not elimination. The harvested losses come with reduced basis elsewhere, so the gain reappears later. But later can be many years, can be erased by charitable gifting or a step up at death. And the tax you don't pay in year 1 reinvested is real money. And an infrastructure note, because it's required and it's not a tax move. Selling through the blackout window that comes with being newly public usually means a 10b5-1 plan. That's an insider trading safeguard, not a tax strategy. It's just the rails the stage sales runs on. So hold the question. He paid the bigger tax bill, exercised more, sooner, coordinated. The careful one spread it out, and the careful one came out behind. The reason is 60 seconds away, and it's not really about tax at all. Here's why the careful one lost. Spreading the exercises out to save tax treated the tax bill as the thing to minimize. But minimizing this year's tax bill isn't the goal. Keeping the most money across the whole arc is. Coordinating the exercise started the clocks earlier, used the tender cash efficiently, and avoided the AMT trap by absorbing it with ordinary income instead of paying it twice across 2 separate years. The careful one optimized one number, current tax, and missed the arc. The bigger bill up front bought a better total. Same event, 2 philosophies, and a lot more money between them in a high tax state. And here's what doesn't change no matter what the market does. The pre-IPO window closes when the company files. The lockup is 180 days, whether you like the price or not. The post-lockup tape does whatever it does. Those windows are not negotiable, and they don't wait for you to be ready. Most of the deadlines in your financial life have some to give. These don't. The market can move the price, it can't move the windows, which is why the planning has to lead the event instead of chasing it. Now the bigger question, the one almost nobody asks before they sell a share, and the one that actually decides whether this event mattered. The entire industry is wired to optimize the tax, and almost no one asks what the money is for. And without an answer, here's what happens, and I've watched it happen plenty. The shares get sold, the tax gets minimized, the portfolio gets rebuilt, and a year later, there's a pile of cash and a quiet feeling that nothing actually changed. The liquidity event happened to someone instead of for them. So before the first share is sold, the conversation I want you to force with yourself, with your spouse, with whoever helps you, is across 5 buckets. Not allocations I'm recommending, a conversation you have to have. First is immediate, the unglamorous one, the tax bill itself, cash reserves, paying off the debt that's been quietly stressing you out, 6 to 12 months of runway, so the rest of these decisions get made from security instead of fear. Second is family, annual gifts to people you'd help anyways. The 2026 exclusion is $19,000 per recipient. 529s for kids or grandkids, for some, larger trust funding. This is the bucket where the money quietly takes care of people. Third is lifestyle, the honest one, the house or the second one, the travel you keep deferring, working less or working differently, or taking the sabbatical you described to your spouse 3 times and have never taken. This is allowed to be a real bucket. You earned it. Fourth is the long-term plan. Does this event move your financial independence date up? Change how much risk you ever need to take again? Change what retirement even looks like? Sometimes the most valuable thing a liquidity event buys isn't a thing. It's the ability to stop optimizing and start coasting on terms you set. Fifth is everything else that's meaningful. Philanthropy and giving appreciated shares instead of cash is often the tax-smart way to do it. A venture, real estate, something that matters to you that I don't get to define. Assign a rough percentage to each before you sell. Because here's the thing. 2 people with identical IPO outcomes look completely different 5 years later. One had a plan and ran it. The other had the same mediocre portfolio cash and the faint feeling they missed something. The tax moves served the buckets, not the other way around. That's the difference between I had a liquidity event and I had a liquidity event and it changed something. The employee who paid the bigger tax bill came out ahead. You now know why. He wasn't being careless with tax. He was refusing to let this year's tax bill be the thing that decided a multi-year event. Careful about the wrong number is its own kind of expense. The IPO isn't the event. It's the locked window in the middle of an arc. And the moves that decide what it's worth happen before and after, never during. Early enough at a good company that this could change your life. Not far enough along that anyone's shown you whether it will. The market sets the price, it doesn't set the windows. The pre-IPO window closes when the company files. The lockup runs its 180 days, and the tape after does what it does. Plan ahead of those. Over 10 years, my team has run this arc with employees through their IPOs. In higher tax states, the ones who treated it as one coordinated plan kept more than the ones who took it one decision at a time. Less in a no-tax state, more in California, and I'd rather tell you the number honestly than quote you one number that's only true in one place. So this week, 2 things. 1, find out the single most important date in your equity paperwork, when your shares were issued, because it decides which tax rules even apply to you. 2, write down in 1 sentence each what you want this money to actually do across the 5 buckets. Most people have never written it down. If you don't know your issuance date or you can't fill in the 5 buckets yet, and most people can't the first time, that's the conversation. Your grant, your windows, your buckets. Head over to the calendar link to map your arc on your actual situation. And if you know someone whose company is filing or just did, send this to them before the tender window closes. The most valuable move on the whole arc is the quiet one, 12 months early, that nobody tells you about. Because the point of a liquidity event was never the liquidity. It was whatever you wanted it to change. See you in the next one.